You think you can lay your filthy hands on his mother, you useless black maid? Regina Ward's voice tore through the quiet afternoon like a dagger. Maya Williams, only 29 but with the calm composure of someone twice her age, was crouched low. Her arms wrapped tightly around the frail frame of Mrs. Clara Calloway. The 78-year-old woman was trembling, her eyes wide with fear. Regina's stiletto heel connected with Maya's hip in a vicious kick. "Get your hands off her, you meddling piece of trash." She spat, voice dripping venom. "This is not your business. Do you hear me? Not your business." "Please, stop," Maya cried, her voice breaking. "She's in pain, please. Don't hurt her anymore. She's your fiancé's mother. Please, think of her heart." But Regina only laughed, a sound that felt like nails on glass. "Look at you, pretending to be some kind of hero. You're nothing but a servant. Stay in your place." She grabbed a silver tray from the sideboard and hurled it across the room. It clanged against the far wall, just missing Maya's head. Maya flinched but did not let go of Clara. "Mrs. Calloway," she whispered urgently. "I've got you. Breathe. Please breathe." Clara's thin hands clutched at Maya's sleeve, but her lips moved soundlessly. "Let her go," Regina shrieked again. "You're hurting her. Ethan, Ethan, help!" From the archway, a voice boomed, low and controlled. "What the hell is going on?" Ethan Calloway stood framed by the doorway, 6'2", immaculate in a navy suit, his storm-gray eyes widening at the sight. His mother hunched over, his fiancée trembling theatrically, and his black maid crouched, arms wrapped around Clara. Regina whirled toward him, her face pale but her eyes glittering with calculation. "Ethan, thank God. I tried to stop her, but she snapped. She shoved your mother. I couldn't get her off." "That's not true." Maya's voice was hoarse. She looked up, eyes glistening with tears. "I was trying to protect her. She was about to—" "Shut up!" Regina screamed, pointing a manicured finger at Maya. "You think you can waltz in here and play savior? You think anyone's going to believe you?" She turned back to Ethan, voice quivering. "She's dangerous. Look at her, look at my arm." She clutched her own elbow, though no mark was there. Ethan's jaw clenched. He took a step closer. "Wait, before we continue, if this story touched your heart, please hit subscribe. It truly encourages us to bring you more powerful stories. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to know our amazing viewers around the world." Eyes fixed on Maya. "Get away from my mother." Maya's heart plummeted. "Sir, please listen to me. I said, get away." Ethan barked, his voice sharp enough to slice the air. Regina gasped as if in relief. "Thank you, finally. She was scaring me to death." Maya gently shifted Clara against the armrest of the chaise, hands trembling. "Mrs. Calloway needs a doctor. Please, Ethan. Don't—" "I trusted you," Ethan muttered, more to himself than anyone. His mother, silent and pale, reached out a shaking hand toward Maya, but Ethan didn't notice. "You're fired," he said flatly. "Pack your things and leave. Now." Maya's lips parted, a single breath of protest rising, but she swallowed it. She had seen this before when truth collided with power. Power always spoke louder. She stood slowly, straightening her uniform. "I was only trying to help," she whispered. Regina stepped closer, voice low but still cutting. "Get out before I call the police. You've done enough." Maya glanced once more at Clara's stricken face, then at Ethan's cold eyes. "Please," she said softly, "don't let her be alone with her again." No one answered. She turned and walked out, past Regina's satisfied smirk, past the marble foyer where the shards of china glinted like broken promises. Outside, rain began to fall, cool and steady. Her old Ford Escort waited at the end of the drive. Maya gripped her duffel tighter and kept walking, her back straight even as her heart cracked. Inside, Ethan knelt by his mother, helping her to a chair. "Are you all right?" he asked, voice softening. Clara looked past him toward the door where Maya had gone, eyes full of something like despair. She tried to speak, but the words caught in her throat. Behind Ethan, Regina hovered, her tone perfectly pitched. "She's unstable, Ethan. I told you something wasn't right. Thank God you came when you did." Ethan said nothing. He stared at the floor, at the glint of shattered porcelain, at the image burned into his mind, his mother in the maid's arms, his fiancée crying, and a story that didn't yet make sense. But for now, he let the lie stand. And outside, in the rain, the only person who had truly protected his mother was driving away, carrying the weight of a crime she hadn't committed. The rain hadn't stopped since Maya left the Calloway estate. It fell in heavy sheets that blurred the road ahead, the wipers of her old Ford working frantically to keep up. Her uniform was still damp, where Regina's heel had struck her, a dull ache pulsing with each movement. The words still echoed in her mind, useless black maid. She had heard it before, just never from someone standing beside crystal chandeliers and million-dollar art. She pulled into a gas station on the outskirts of Charleston, its single neon sign buzzing like an anxious insect. Inside the convenience store, a young cashier in a hoodie barely looked up. Maya poured herself a cup of burnt coffee, added too much sugar, and paid with the last crumpled 5 in her pocket. When she stepped outside, the rain had softened to a drizzle, and she sat in her car for a long time before turning the key. Her reflection in the rearview mirror was tired but unbroken. She whispered to herself, "You did what was right, but it didn't feel right." Doing right never seemed to pay. A flash of lightning illuminated her hands, still trembling, and she tightened her grip on the wheel. The Ford sputtered back to life. She drove until she found the small roadside inn she remembered from her nursing days, Whisper Pines Lodge, the same one where traveling nurses stayed between shifts. The woman at the front desk, an older lady with a smoker's rasp, squinted at her. "One night or more?" "One night," Maya said softly. 45 cash. No smoking, no parties, and don't complain about the heater." "Understood." The room smelled faintly of old carpet and rain. Maya sat on the edge of the bed, her duffel at her feet. She pulled out a small notebook, the one she'd started after her mother's funeral, and began to write. Her handwriting wavered with exhaustion. "I lost another job today. Not because of what I did, but because of what I am. Still, I'd do it again." I couldn't let her hurt that old woman. She closed the notebook and reached into the pocket of her jacket. There, wrapped in tissue paper, was the silver hairpin Clara had given her 2 weeks earlier. "For luck," the old woman had said, smiling faintly. Maya held it now, feeling its cold edges, and wondered if Clara was all right. Across town, the Calloway mansion was silent. Ethan stood in the hallway outside his mother's room, hands deep in his pockets, watching the steady rhythm of her breathing. The doctor had come and gone, assuring him that the bruises were minor, the shock manageable. "She just needs rest," the doctor had said. Regina hovered by the window, arms crossed, her silk robe glowing faintly in the lamplight. "You see why I didn't want that woman here, Ethan. She was unstable. The way she clung to your mother, it wasn't normal." Ethan turned. "She's been nothing but kind to my mother for months. What could possibly make her snap like that?" Regina's expression hardened just enough to show through the mask of sympathy. "People like her. They hold grudges. Maybe she thought your mother didn't respect her. You know how they get when they feel small." "People like her?" His tone was quiet but edged. She blinked. "You know what I mean. She wasn't like us." He studied her face for a long moment, then turned away. "I'm going to check on my mother." Regina's voice followed him, sweet again. "Of course, darling. I'll make you some tea." In the guest room, Clara lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Her ribs ached, but that wasn't what hurt. What hurt was the look in her son's eyes, the same disbelief she'd seen when his father walked out years ago. He'd always believed too quickly in beautiful lies. "Maya," she whispered softly, the name catching in her throat. She tried to sit up but winced. A faint tapping at the door made her pause. Linda, the head housekeeper, entered quietly with a tray. "I brought you soup, Mrs. Calloway." "Thank you, Linda." Linda hesitated, then said in a low voice, "I don't believe she did it, ma'am." Clara's eyes filled. "Neither do I. She cared for you like family," Linda continued. "That's not something you can fake." Clara reached for Linda's hand, gripping it weakly. "Will you do something for me? If you hear from her, Maya, please tell her. I'm sorry she had to take the blame." Linda nodded, voice trembling. "Yes, ma'am." In the kitchen downstairs, Regina stirred her tea, the spoon clinking softly against the porcelain. She was smiling. The next morning, Maya sat in the small diner beside the inn, her coffee untouched. The waitress, a plump woman with kind eyes, noticed her hesitation and asked, "You all right, honey? You look like you've seen a ghost." Maya gave a tired smile. "Just a bad day at work." The woman chuckled. "Ain't that the truth? Want some pie? On the house." She accepted. The cherry pie was warm, the crust flaky, the sugar melting into comfort she hadn't known she needed. When she finished, she left a note under the saucer. "Thank you for the kindness. I'll pay it forward when I can." Back at her room, she began to draft a letter addressed to Mr. Ethan Calloway. The first lines came slowly. "Sir, I know you don't owe me an explanation, and perhaps I don't deserve one. But please know I never meant harm. Your mother's safety was all I cared about. I wish you could have seen what really happened." She folded the letter neatly. "If you're still here and enjoying the story, we'd love your support. Take a second to hit subscribe. It really means a lot." Placed it inside an envelope and hesitated. Something inside her said sending it wouldn't matter. Men like Ethan lived in a world where apologies came with signatures and seals, not with truth. Still, she slipped the letter into her bag. As night settled again, she stepped outside the motel room and looked at the sky. The rain had stopped. The air smelled of wet asphalt and pine. Somewhere in the distance, a train whistle moaned a lonely sound that stretched across miles of darkness. She whispered to herself, "One day, they'll know." And miles away, in the mansion she had left behind, Ethan stood alone in his study, the rain streaking the tall windows. He looked at the broken teacup on his desk, the one he had ordered saved from the cleanup, its porcelain glued back together though the cracks still showed. He turned it in his hands, whispering to no one. "Why would she hurt you, Mother? Why would anyone?" But in the back of his mind, a quiet doubt stirred one that wouldn't leave him alone. The next morning broke through gray clouds, light spilling reluctantly across the manicured lawns of the Calloway estate. From the outside, nothing looked disturbed, no trace of the chaos that had filled its grand halls the day before. But inside, silence carried weight, the kind that presses down on a house after something unforgivable has been said. Ethan stood by the window of his study, coffee cooling on his desk. He hadn't slept. The image of Maya's face haunted him, the shock in her eyes, the way her body shielded his mother's. He wanted to dismiss it, to believe what he saw had been simple and clear, but the memory refused to settle neatly. Something about it gnawed at him. Regina appeared in the doorway, wrapped in a silk robe the color of pale champagne. Her hair was immaculate, her expression soft and calculated. "You've been in here all night," she said gently. "You're torturing yourself, Ethan. You saw what she did." He rubbed the bridge of his nose. "Did I? Or did I just walk into the middle of something I didn't understand?" Regina's voice trembled on cue. "You think I would lie about something like that? After everything?" She stepped closer, letting the robe slip just enough from her shoulder to reveal vulnerability. "She was dangerous. She could have hurt your mother, hurt us." Ethan looked up, eyes cold but uncertain. "You said she shoved you?" "Yes." "Then where's the bruise?" For the first time, Regina faltered. "You think I made that up?" He sighed, leaning back in the chair. "I'm just trying to make sense of it." Regina's tone sharpened, the sweetness thinning. "Sense of it? Ethan, that woman was a problem from day one. Always watching. Always interfering. You didn't see the way she looked at me. Like she was judging me. Like she thought she was better." Ethan didn't respond. He picked up his cup, took a sip, and stared into the dark swirl of his coffee. "She came highly recommended. My mother liked her." Regina scoffed softly. "Your mother likes anyone who reminds her of herself, soft, spoken, obedient. It's why she doesn't understand me." "That's not true," he said quietly. Regina turned sharply, frustration flashing through the mask. "You think your mother likes me? Ethan, she barely tolerates me. Every time I walk into a room, she looks at me like I'm stealing something." He glanced toward the hallway where his mother's room lay beyond. "Maybe because she's afraid she is." Regina's breath caught, and for a moment, her real self slipped through the cold, dangerous self beneath the diamond ring. "You better be careful," she whispered. "You start doubting me now, you'll regret it." Then, with a delicate smile, she added, "Breakfast will be ready soon." She turned and left, her perfume lingering behind like smoke. Ethan stared after her, jaw tightening. In her upstairs bedroom, Clara Calloway sat propped against her pillows, her silver hair gathered in a bun. Her breathing was steady again, but her hands trembled slightly as she turned the pages of her worn prayer book. When Linda, the head housekeeper, entered, Clara looked up. "Did you find her?" Clara asked softly. Linda shook her head. "No, ma'am. She left no address. I tried calling the number she gave the agency, but it's been disconnected." Clara's eyes dimmed. She was a good girl. She didn't deserve this. Linda hesitated. "Mr. Ethan believes Miss Regina's version of things. At least for now." Clara closed the book. "My son always wanted to see the best in people, even when they showed him the worst." Linda hesitated, then lowered her voice. "Do you want me to tell him what I saw?" "No." Clara's tone was gentle but firm. "Not yet. He wouldn't believe it coming from you. Or from me. He needs to see it for himself. And if he doesn't?" Clara looked toward the window where rain streaked down the glass again. "Then the truth will find another way." Later that morning, Ethan drove into the city to meet his attorney. The meeting was routine, a review of property contracts, but his mind kept drifting. At a red light, he caught his reflection in the car window and barely recognized the man staring back. He was successful, powerful, respected, and utterly unsure of his own judgment. His phone buzzed. A text from Regina. "Dinner tonight. 7 sharp. Wear something that says you're mine." He set the phone face down on the console. The possessiveness in her tone, once flattering, now grated. Back at the Whisper Pines Lodge, Maya sat at a small desk in her room, typing on an aging laptop she'd borrowed from the front office. The rain outside softened to a steady rhythm, the kind that always lulled her into focus. She was updating her resume, though her heart wasn't in it. Every word she typed felt like a lie. How do you summarize loyalty? How do you describe compassion when it's the very thing that got you fired? Her phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. "This is Linda. Mrs. Calloway's resting. She asked me to tell you she's sorry." Maya's throat tightened. She stared at the message for a long time before replying. "Tell her she has nothing to be sorry for." She closed the laptop and lay back on the bed. The roof leaked slightly, a slow drip near the window. She placed a mug beneath it and listened. She thought of Clara's trembling hands, of the fear in her eyes, and of Ethan's expression how quickly trust had turned to anger. Hours passed before sleep claimed her. That night, in the Calloway mansion, Regina poured herself a glass of wine and scrolled through her phone. Her reflection smirked back at her from the black screen. She had won again. Until she didn't, because upstairs, in the quiet of Clara Calloway's room, a faint red light blinked from a forgotten camera tucked high in the corner, one of the new security devices Ethan had installed months earlier. After reading about a string of robberies in Charleston's wealthiest homes, he had forgotten about it. So had Regina, but it hadn't forgotten about them. It had seen everything, and while the mansion slept, its tiny lens recorded over the events of the day, frame by frame, truth waiting patiently for the moment it would be needed. The next sunrise found Ethan sitting alone in his office, the blinds half drawn, the light cutting sharp angles across his face. He hadn't gone to bed after returning from the city. The coffee on his desk was cold, untouched. On the wall opposite him hung a portrait of his mother painted 20 years earlier, Clara in her nurse's uniform. Her smile soft, her eyes calm. He looked at it now, and saw the bruise on her wrist instead. He replayed the scene again and again. Maya on the floor, his mother trembling, Regina's voice shrill with panic. He had reacted out of instinct, but whose instinct had it been, his or Regina's? He didn't like the answer. A knock came at the door. "Come in," he said, voice hoarse. Linda stepped inside, holding a tray with breakfast. "Mrs. Calloway wanted to have breakfast upstairs. I thought you might like some too." He nodded absently, staring at the eggs growing cold on the porcelain plate. "How is she?" "Resting, sir. Quiet. She keeps asking about Maya. The sound of the name hit him harder than he expected. Maya? Yes, sir. She wanted to know if Miss Williams found another position yet. He frowned. Why would she ask that? Linda hesitated. Because she believes the girl meant her no harm. Ethan's gaze sharpened. You believe that too? Linda set down the tray. Sir, I've worked for this family 22 years. I know people's hearts better than their words. Maya would never raise a hand against your mother. Not in anger. Then why did she look guilty? He asked quietly. She looked frightened. Linda corrected gently. There's a difference. He had no reply. When she left, the house fell back into silence, broken only by the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. Across the estate, Regina was dressing for a brunch interview with a lifestyle magazine. She stood before her mirror, adjusting the diamond pendant Ethan had given her. The reflection pleased her, poised, delicate, unblemished. Perfect, she whispered. Yet beneath the surface, nerves fluttered. She'd noticed Ethan's distance, the way he avoided her gaze. She would have to fix that before it grew into something dangerous. At the mansion gates, a courier dropped off a small padded envelope addressed to Ethan. Inside was a folded letter in familiar handwriting. Elegant, careful, restrained. Dear Mr. Calloway, it began. I know I have no right to contact you. I only wish to assure you that Mrs. Calloway's well-being was always my only concern. I hope one day you'll understand why I couldn't stay silent. The envelope also contained a silver hairpin, his mother's. Ethan stared at it for a long time. How had she gotten it? Or had his mother given it to her? He placed the hairpin on his desk and leaned back, exhaling slowly. That evening, the Calloway house hosted a small dinner, just Ethan, Regina, and Clara. The meal was quiet, the air thick with things unsaid. Clara ate little. Regina filled the silence with chatter about guest lists and gala events, as if nothing unpleasant had ever happened. At one point, Ethan looked up. Mother, he said, about the other day, do you remember exactly what happened? Clara's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Regina tensed but smiled quickly. Darling, let's not bring that up again. Your mother doesn't need the stress. But Ethan waited. Clara set her fork down carefully. I remember voices, she said softly. I remember falling. And I remember Maya holding me. Regina's smile froze. Yes, After what? Ethan interrupted, his tone steady. Because the doctor said the bruises on her shoulder came from a sharp grip. Not a fall. Clara met his eyes. Sometimes people hold on too tightly when they're scared. Ethan nodded slowly, understanding that his mother was trying to protect someone and not Regina. After dinner, he walked her to her room. Mother, he said quietly, do you trust Regina? She looked at him for a long moment before answering. I trust that people always show you who they are if you stop telling yourself who you want them to be. He kissed her forehead. Rest, Mom. Downstairs, Regina poured 2 glasses of wine and met him in the parlor. You're quiet tonight, she said lightly. I have a lot on my mind. About her again? The edge in her voice was sharp now. He didn't deny it. I keep thinking maybe I made a mistake. Regina laughed softly, a sound like broken glass wrapped in velvet. Oh, Ethan, you're too kind for your own good. Some people use that against you. She moved closer, placing her hand on his chest. Let me take care of you. Forget about her. Her perfume was overwhelming, but beneath it, something felt off like counterfeit sweetness. He stepped back. Good night, Regina. She stood frozen as he walked upstairs, her expression hardening the moment his back was turned. Fine, she whispered to the empty room. If you want to doubt me, I'll make sure you never doubt again. Later, Ethan sat in his mother's study. It still smelled faintly of lavender and old books. On the desk sat her favorite porcelain vase, a relic from his childhood. He traced its curved surface, remembering how she used to save every broken piece of their lives and glue it back together, saying, cracks make room for light. He thought of the shattered teacup, the look in Maya's eyes, the fear that had crossed his mother's face before he entered the room. Maybe the cracks he'd been ignoring were finally showing him the truth. He reached for the house security system tablet on the wall. It had been updated months ago, but he'd never bothered to check the recordings. He typed in his password and began to scroll. Most of the cameras displayed the usual still frames, the garden, the foyer, the main hallway, but one thumbnail caught his eye. Library. Auto backup enabled. He frowned. That was where the confrontation had taken place. The file was large, time-stamped the same day Maya left. He pressed play. The footage flickered to life. His mother seated with a book, Regina pacing, her voice faint but audible. "You think your son will still care when I'm done with you?" The sound of a crash, the teacup. Then Maya's voice, "Please stop. She's not well." Ethan's hand went cold. He watched until the end, until he heard his own footsteps entering the frame, his own voice shouting, his mother's silent tears. He stopped the video and sat back, heart pounding. Every piece of it had been there. Waiting. Upstairs, Clara stirred in her sleep as if sensing the shift. And downstairs, Ethan Calloway finally saw himself clearly in the mirror of regret, in the reflection of a truth he could no longer unsee. The late afternoon sun filtered through thin motel curtains, throwing faded orange bars across Maya's face. She had barely slept the night before. Her dreams came in flashes, Clara's fragile hands clutching at her sleeve, Regina's heel driving into her side, Ethan's voice cold as steel. She woke gasping, as if dragged from underwater. At the Whisper Pines Lodge, morning started with the hum of vending machines and the smell of reheated coffee drifting from the small lobby. Maya sat at the narrow desk by the window, staring at the letter she had written but never mailed. "Your mother's well-being was my only concern." The words felt small compared to the storm inside her. She folded it back into the envelope and set it aside. A knock sounded on her door. "Housekeeping," a woman's voice called. Maya opened it to find a gray-haired woman with kind blue eyes and a slow smile. Her name tag read Mrs. Grace Turner. "Oh, you're the nurse who checked in the other night, right?" Maya nodded. "Used to be, not anymore." Grace gave a sympathetic chuckle. "Used to be a teacher myself. Used to think kids listened too." She paused, looking at Maya's tired face. "You want to talk about it? I don't think it would help." "Sometimes it does," Grace said, leaning her mop against the wall. "Sometimes saying it out loud is the only way to keep it from eating you alive." Maya hesitated, then motioned her inside. "I worked for a family rich, powerful. Their mother's elderly, sweet, fragile. I tried to protect her. But," she exhaled, "they believed the wrong person." Grace frowned. "You mean they fired you?" "Fired me, accused me. I'm lucky they didn't call the police." Grace shook her head. "People with money forget they bleed the same color." Maya gave a small, grateful smile. "You sound like my mother." "What happened to her?" "She passed away 3 years ago." Maya's gaze drifted to the silver hairpin on the table. "She used to tell me, you can't choose what the world calls you, but you can choose who you answer to." I thought I understood that. Grace reached out, squeezing Maya's hand. "Maybe now you really do." Later that evening, Maya walked to the diner across the street, a modest place called Betty's Corner Grill. It was the kind of spot where the waitresses called everyone sweetheart, and the jukebox still took quarters. She sat in the far booth, ordered tomato soup and cornbread, and let the hum of conversation settle around her like a blanket. At the next table, 2 older men discussed the local news. "You hear about that Calloway mess? His fiancée is going to be on the cover of Southern Living. Can you imagine?" "Yeah," the other said, chuckling. "Money buys forgiveness faster than God ever could." Maya's spoon froze halfway to her mouth. She lowered her gaze and forced herself to breathe. The world had already decided whose side it was on. When the waitress refilled her coffee, Maya asked quietly, "You ever meet someone who just takes everything from you with a smile?" The waitress laughed. "Honey, I was married twice." That night, back in her room, Maya found herself pacing. Her ribs still hurt from Regina's kick, and she pressed a hand to her side as she walked. On the nightstand lay her worn Bible, the same one she had carried since her mother's funeral. She opened it to a page she knew by heart. "And you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." She whispered, "Then let the truth find me." The motel was quiet except for the drip in the ceiling. She turned on her old laptop, the one with cracked hinges and missing keys. The memory card from her uniform's front pocket slid into the port with a soft click. She hadn't remembered putting it there. Maybe it had fallen from Clara's bedside camera weeks ago. Maybe fate had dropped it. She waited as the folder opened. There were short clips, mostly routine housekeeping shots, but one file stood out, dated the afternoon of the incident. Her heart raced. She clicked play. The video began in Clara's sitting room. Regina's voice came first, sharp and mocking. "You think your son loves you because he needs you? He's marrying me, not you." Then Clara's quiet reply, "You don't belong in this house if you can't show respect." The image shook as if the camera had been bumped. Then a blur of movement, Regina stepping forward, Clara stumbling back, the teacup flying. Maya appeared in frame seconds later, catching the older woman before she hit the ground. "Please don't," Maya's voice cried from the speaker. "She's not well. Stop this." Regina's reply cut through. "Get your filthy hands off her, you stupid maid." Then the kick, the cry, the chaos until the door opened and Ethan entered. Maya stopped the video, her hand over her mouth. Her whole body trembled. "Oh, dear God," she whispered. She copied the footage to a flash drive, then unplugged the laptop. Her first instinct was to send it to Ethan, but another part of her hesitated. He hadn't listened before. Why would he now? Still, it wasn't about him anymore. It was about Mrs. Calloway, about clearing her own name. She would send it anonymously, through the only person she trusted, Linda. She wrote a note by hand. "This is what really happened. For Mrs. Calloway's sake, please show him." At dawn, Maya walked to the post office 2 blocks away, her coat pulled tight against the chill. She mailed the small brown envelope and watched as it disappeared down the chute. For the first time in days, her chest loosened. Back at the estate, the same dawn spilled pale light through Ethan's windows. He stood by the kitchen counter, watching coffee drip slowly into the pot. He'd spent the night replaying the security footage he'd discovered, feeling every word, every scream like a blade. He hadn't shown it to Regina yet. He wanted to see how far she'd go. When she entered the kitchen, dressed in silk and false warmth, he handed her a cup. "Morning." She smiled sweetly. "Morning, love. Did you sleep?" "Not much." Her eyes flicked toward his laptop on the counter. "Working already?" "Something like that." As she poured sugar into her cup, Ethan studied her. Every gesture, every breath felt rehearsed. The image on the screen behind him paused at the moment her hand shoved his mother's shoulder was still burned into his mind. "Regina," he said softly. "Yes, darling." He met her eyes. "If you ever lie to me again, you won't have to worry about losing your reputation. You'll have to worry about losing yourself." She blinked, the smile faltering for the first time. "What are you talking about?" He didn't answer. He just took his coffee and walked away, leaving her standing in the kitchen, the mask cracking at its edges. Outside, the morning wind stirred the rose bushes along the front path. The petals fluttered, soft and silent like tiny fragments of something breaking, something about to change forever. Rain swept through Charleston again, steady and cold, washing over the streets like a quiet penance. Maya stood under the small awning outside the post office, watching the storm gather strength. The envelope was already gone on its way to the Calloway estate. Her hands were still shaking, not from the cold but from the weight of what she had done. For the first time since the day she was fired, she had hope, but it was a fragile, trembling thing, as fragile as the paper that now carried her truth. She returned to the Whisper Pines Lodge, her hair damp, coat clinging to her shoulders. Inside, Mrs. Grace Turner waved from behind the front desk. "Morning, sweetheart. You look like you went swimming with your clothes on." Maya gave a faint smile. "You could say that." Grace chuckled, handing her a towel. "Whatever you mailed off this morning, I hope it's worth the postage." Maya paused, startled. "How did you?" "I've been working this counter 30 years, Grace said. "I can tell a reckoning when I see one walk out my door." Maya smiled for real this time. "Maybe it's time someone saw the truth." "Good," Grace said. "Truth's a stubborn thing, it don't die easy, even when people bury it." Back at the mansion, the world was anything but quiet. The morning mail had arrived, and among the invoices and glossy invitations sat a small brown envelope addressed in neat handwriting. To Mr. Ethan Calloway, personal and confidential. The butler set it on the silver tray with the rest, unaware that it carried the key to everything. Ethan found it hours later, after a restless afternoon of phone calls and meetings he couldn't remember. The name on the back, M. Williams, stopped him cold. His pulse quickened as he slid his finger under the flap and pulled out a folded note. The handwriting was unmistakable. This is not about forgiveness. It's about truth. For your mother's sake, please watch what's inside. I don't want revenge. I just want peace. A flash drive was taped to the bottom of the page. He held it for a long moment, the weight of it heavier than it should have been. Upstairs, Regina was on a video call with a journalist, laughing too loudly about her upcoming foundation gala. We'll have over 200 guests, she was saying, her voice honey-sweet. It's not just about philanthropy, it's about vision, legacy, and compassion. Ethan shut his study door and plugged the flash drive into his computer. The file loaded immediately, one single clip. Library. Security. 4. MP. 4. He clicked play. The room filled with sound. His mother's quiet voice, shaking but firm. Regina's sharp retorts. The crash of porcelain. Then Maya's voice pleading, desperate, human. Please stop, she's not well. Then the words he'd heard once before, now impossible to forget. You think you can lay your filthy hands on his mother, you useless black maid. Ethan froze. The next moment showed it all, Regina's kick, Maya shielding his mother, the look of horror when he entered the room. His stomach twisted. The truth hit like a fist to the chest. He turned off the monitor and leaned back in his chair, gripping the armrests to steady himself. His breathing came in sharp, uneven bursts. Dear God, he whispered. He pressed play again, watched it twice, 3 times. Each replay felt like another crack forming in the life he thought he understood. Footsteps sounded in the hallway light, quick, practiced. Regina appeared at the door, smiling. There you are. I was wondering where you disappeared to. Ethan turned the monitor off just in time. Working, he said. His voice sounded foreign. Working? She repeated, teasing. Or hiding? He managed a smile. Maybe both. She sauntered in, her perfume trailing like smoke. You missed my interview. They asked about you, about us. She placed her hands on his shoulders, leaning in. You should have been there. He didn't move. Maybe I should have. Regina circled to face him. You look pale. Is everything all right? Fine, he said quietly. You're lying. Her tone was playful but probing. What are you hiding, Ethan? He looked up at her, eyes unreadable. Do you really want me to answer that? Something flickered in her expression, a crack. Brief but telling. She laughed too quickly, covering it. You're impossible. As she left, he exhaled slowly, the mask slipping from his face. He turned the monitor back on and watched the last seconds of the video, Maya's face as she looked toward the door. Her expression a mix of fear and dignity. He felt the burn of shame crawl up his throat. Later that evening, he walked into his mother's room. Clara sat by the window, wrapped in a shawl, her eyes reflecting the golden hour sunlight. She looked peaceful, though her face bore the faint bruises that the camera had captured so clearly. Mother, he said softly. She turned, smiling faintly. You look like your father when you're troubled. I have something to tell you. I know, she said simply. He blinked. You know? I knew the moment you stopped believing your own anger. He sat beside her. I saw the recording. She nodded. Then you finally see people as they are. He swallowed. I believed her. I fired someone who protected you. I humiliated her. Clara's voice was gentle but firm. You were blind, Ethan. We all are sometimes. What matters is what you do once you can see again. He nodded, eyes wet. I'm going to make it right. I believe you will. That night, Ethan sat in his study again, staring at the flash drive on the desk. He picked up his phone, opened a blank email, and began to type. Maya, it's Ethan. I've seen the truth. Please come back. I need to speak with you. He hesitated before hitting send. Maybe she wouldn't answer. Maybe she'd never forgive him. But for the first time, he didn't care about forgiveness, he cared about justice. Miles away, in her small motel room, Maya sat on her bed reading a worn paperback. Her phone buzzed. She looked down, saw his name, and froze. She didn't open it right away. She just stared at the screen until the light dimmed. Outside, the rain slowed to a drizzle, tapping softly against the window like a heartbeat, steady, patient, alive. The storm had begun to quiet, but neither of them knew that it was only just beginning. The morning sun rose reluctantly, draping the Charleston sky in streaks of gray and rose gold. Inside the Calloway mansion, the light slipped through tall windows, cutting across Ethan's study and catching the edge of the silver flash drive still lying on his desk. He hadn't slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw it the moment Regina's heel struck, the way Maya's body took the blow meant for his mother. The truth was no longer a question. It was a wound that refused to close. He poured himself another coffee, black and bitter, and pressed play again. The footage flickered on the monitor, its timestamp a brutal reminder that truth often hides in plain sight. He forced himself to watch every frame, his jaw tight, his pulse uneven. At the final image, Maya looking toward the doorway, pleading for someone to see, he froze the screen. The word sorry slipped from his lips before he realized he'd spoken. A soft knock startled him. "Ethan?" Regina's voice drifted through the door, silky but cautious. He didn't answer. After a pause, the handle turned and she appeared, dressed impeccably in cream and pearls, the picture of composure. "You've been in here since dawn. What's wrong?" He didn't look up. "Just working." "Nah." She stepped closer, tilting her head with practiced concern. "You've been distant lately. Is this about that girl again?" Ethan's eyes lifted, cool and unreadable. "Her name is Maya." Regina blinked. "I see. So you're still thinking about the woman who attacked your mother." He took a long breath, setting his coffee aside. "Funny thing about truth, it doesn't care what we think it is. It just waits until we're brave enough to see it." Regina's smile stiffened. "What's that supposed to mean?" He stood, crossing the room to the window. "It means I know what happened that day." Her heartbeat faltered just enough for him to notice. "You're mistaken," she said quickly. "You heard what she said to me. You saw. I saw what you wanted me to see." He turned, eyes sharp now. "But there's something you didn't know. The house cameras in the library were on." Her face went pale. For a moment, all the grace drained from her expression. "You're bluffing." "Duh. Am I?" Ethan's voice was quiet, deadly calm. He reached for the flash drive on his desk and held it up. "I watched it, Regina. Every word, every movement." She took a step back. "You can't prove anything. That video could have been edited. You don't know who sent it." "I know enough." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You kicked my mother. You humiliated the one person in this house who actually had a soul, and then you let me destroy her life to protect yours." "No." Regina's mask cracked. "Do you think anyone will believe you over me?" she hissed. "You'll destroy your reputation, your company, everything." He stared at her, eyes like steel. Maybe that's what it takes to make things right. The silence stretched between them like a drawn bow. Finally, Regina forced a smile, too wide to be sincere. "You won't do it. You're not that kind of man." Ethan met her gaze. "No, I wasn't, but you made me one." Without another word, he pocketed the flash drive and walked out. Regina stood motionless, trembling with fury. He drove straight to his mother's nursing suite. Clara was awake, knitting by the window. When she saw him, she smiled faintly. "You've got that look again," she said. "The one you had when you were 12 and broke the neighbor's window." Ethan chuckled softly. "I broke more than a window this time, Mom." He pulled a chair close. "I need to tell you something." She set her knitting aside. "I already know, darling." He frowned. "You do?" Clara nodded. "I saw the way you looked at her funeral portrait. I'm not talking about Dad." "I know," she said gently. "You finally saw the truth about that girl, about Maya." Ethan lowered his gaze. "I was wrong. I let a liar turn me against someone who was protecting you." Clara reached across the armrest, placing a trembling hand on his. We all believe lies when they come wrapped in love, Ethan. But love without honesty is just vanity in a prettier dress. He smiled sadly. You always did know how to make a sermon sound like advice. I was a nurse for 40 years, she said. I've seen people bleed out because pride made them wait too long to admit they were hurt. He squeezed her hand. Then I'd better start admitting things. Across town, in her small motel room, Maya sat by the window, watching a storm build again over the trees. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, a number she didn't recognize. She hesitated before answering. Maya Williams? This is Ethan Calloway. Her throat tightened. Mr. Calloway. There was a pause, the kind that stretches when both people have too much to say and too little courage. I received your letter, he said quietly. And the video. Maya's heart skipped. Then you know. I do, and I don't have words for how sorry I am. His voice cracked slightly. You saved my mother. I should have seen it. I should have protected you instead. She swallowed. It's too late for that, sir. Maybe not. I want to see you, please. Maya hesitated. Why? Because truth deserves to be spoken face to face. Her first instinct was to hang up to shield herself from more disappointment, but something in his tone stopped her. Not pity. Not guilt. Something steadier. Where? She asked finally. There's a small cafe on King Street. Tomorrow at noon. I'll think about it, she said, then hung up before he could reply. For a long while she sat motionless, the phone still warm in her hand. The rain began to fall again, tapping against the glass in uneven rhythm. Truth, she thought, was never soft. It always came back to knock on the door you'd tried hardest to lock. At the mansion, Ethan returned to his study and set the flash drive inside a drawer. Then, hesitating, he took out another. This one labeled Security Backup. Library. He connected it to his computer and copied the file again, not because he doubted himself, but because he understood now that truth could vanish as easily as trust. Behind him, Regina watched from the hallway, her reflection barely visible in the mirror near the staircase. Her smile was gone, replaced by something colder: determination, fear, and the faint spark of revenge. She whispered to herself, You think this is over, Ethan? You have no idea who you're dealing with. But upstairs, Clara sat at her window, listening to the soft patter of rain. A peace she hadn't felt in weeks settled over her. Somewhere out there, the young woman who had shielded her would finally be seen for who she was. And perhaps, in that seeing, redemption would begin, not loud, not violent, but quietly, like dawn after a storm. The cafe on King Street was small and tucked between a used bookstore and an old tailor shop that had been there since the 1952. Its windows were fogged from the steam of the espresso machines, and the smell of roasted beans lingered thick in the air. Outside, puddles shimmered under the midday sun, reflecting the pastel row houses of Charleston like ghosts of a calmer world. Maya sat by the window, her hands wrapped around a chipped coffee mug, though the drink had long gone cold. She hadn't been sure she would come, but she was there, early, because despite everything, she still believed in decency. The sound of the bell over the door made her look up. Ethan Calloway stood in the doorway, out of place in his tailored gray suit, a man too polished for the humble cafe. When their eyes met, she felt something between anger and relief stir in her chest. He hesitated, then approached the table. Maya, Mr. Calloway. Her voice was steady, polite, but distant. He sat down opposite her. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence between them carried all the things words could never fully fix. Thank you for coming, he said finally. I almost didn't. I wouldn't have blamed you. He looked down at his hands. I owe you more than an apology. She studied him carefully. He looked tired, worn in a way that money couldn't hide. Then say what you came to say, she replied. He exhaled. You were right. I saw the recording. Everything. You protected my mother, and he faltered, guilt twisting in his throat. I destroyed your name because I trusted the wrong person. Mager. Maya's fingers tightened around her mug. You didn't destroy my name, Mr. Calloway. You just reminded me how quickly people like me can lose it. He flinched. You don't deserve that. You deserve… What? Fairness? She let out a quiet, bitter laugh. Justice doesn't visit women like me very often. He didn't argue. Then let me try to change that. Her gaze softened, but only slightly. Why? To ease your conscience? No, he said simply. To do what's right, finally. The waitress interrupted with a nervous smile. Can I get you folks anything? Maya shook her head. Ethan asked for coffee, but it went untouched. I thought you might hate me, he said quietly. I did, Maya admitted. For a while, but hate doesn't hold up forever. It just turns into something heavier. Regret? She looked at him for a long moment. Pity. He smiled faintly at that. I deserve that too. Den. Across the cafe, a man in a tweed cap strummed an old guitar, filling the silence with something soft and nostalgic. It reminded Maya of the evenings she'd spent humming while cooking for Mrs. Calloway, the way the older woman would sit nearby, eyes closed, humming along. Ethan followed her gaze. My mother asks about you every day. Her expression flickered. Is she all right? She's healing. She misses you. She said you made the house feel human again. Maya blinked back sudden tears. She's a good woman. I wish she hadn't had to see what she saw. He leaned forward slightly. She believes in you completely. And so do I, now. That's easy to say when you've seen the proof. He nodded. Maybe. But I think I knew. Even before I watched it. I just didn't want to face what that meant about the person I was marrying. You loved her, Maya said softly. I thought I did, he admitted. But it wasn't love. It was admiration mixed with blindness. Maya tilted her head. Blindness can be cured. Not always. He gave a small, weary smile. Sometimes it leaves scars. They sat in silence again. But this time, it wasn't sharp, it was fragile, almost tender. I don't expect forgiveness, he said. But I wanted to see you, face to face, to say thank you. For what? For being better than all of us. Maya shook her head. Don't thank me for doing what anyone decent should have done. She looked down. Voice barely above a whisper. Your mother didn't deserve what happened. And I couldn't stand by and let someone break her. Ethan reached into his jacket pocket and slid something across the table, a white envelope. There's a check inside. Compensation for what you went through, for the defamation. For the time you lost. She pushed it back immediately. No. It's the least I can. I said no. Her tone was firm now. The quiet strength of someone who had been dismissed too many times. You can't buy back dignity. You can only live like you understand what it's worth. Ethan looked at her, eyes damp but steady. Then let me at least make amends another way. I'm ending things with Regina, and I want to do something in your honor, something for people like you and my mother. A foundation, a safe place. Maya's breath caught. You don't owe me that. I owe it to the woman I failed to see. For the first time, she smiled not with forgiveness, but with weary acceptance. If you mean that, then don't build it for me. Build it for her, for Mrs. Calloway. She's the one who showed me what grace looks like. Ethan nodded, eyes bright with quiet resolve. Then that's what I'll do. They sat there for another few minutes. The air between them no longer heavy with accusation, but with understanding. When Maya finally rose to leave, Ethan stood too. Will I see you again? He asked. She hesitated at the door. Maybe. When the truth's done healing. Oh. Outside, the city shimmered with post-rain light, the streets still slick, the scent of jasmine drifting faintly from the old iron balconies above. Maya walked toward the bus stop, her steps light but sure. Inside the cafe, Ethan remained seated, the untouched check still on the table. He glanced out the window, watching her disappear down the street. For the first time in months, he felt something shift inside him, not peace exactly, but purpose. When he returned home later that afternoon, the mansion seemed different, quieter, colder. Clara was resting, the nurse reading softly beside her. But from upstairs, he heard the echo of heels clicking across marble. Regina was waiting. As he climbed the stairs, his hand brushed the flash drive in his pocket. The truth was no longer silent, and he wasn't, either. The late afternoon light spilled across the marble staircase as Ethan climbed toward the second floor of the mansion. The house, though still immaculate, felt altered like something sacred had been broken and poorly glued back together. Regina's laughter drifted faintly from the master suite. It was a sound that once charmed him, now thin and brittle, echoing off the walls like glass ready to shatter. When he reached the doorway, she was sitting at her vanity, applying lipstick in slow, deliberate strokes. The mirror reflected her smile, but not her eyes. She didn't turn when he entered. "You've been gone all day," she said, her tone light, controlled. "Should I be jealous of another woman?" "Maybe you should," he answered, voice calm but firm. Her hand stilled. "Excuse me?" "I met with Maya." Regina's reflection froze, the lipstick hovering just above her lips. She turned slowly, masking her panic with an icy laugh. "You've got to be joking. After everything she did?" "She didn't do anything," Ethan said. "You did." Regina stood abruptly, the silk of her robe whispering as she faced him. "What exactly are you accusing me of, Ethan?" He stepped closer, placing the flash drive on the vanity table between them. "You know what this is." She stared at it, her pulse visibly rising at her neck. "You think some edited clip changes the truth?" "It's not edited," he said softly. "I've seen it, every second of it." Regina's expression hardened